We all know who the world's greatest detective is, right? It's Batman. Everybody knows that. But who was the runner-up? Who was the competition? The world's second greatest detective, if you will. Meet Vic Sage, or Charles Victor Zaz, aka The Question. Investigative reporter, conspiracy theorist, vigilante, and shaman? There is a lot to unpack with The Question. So let's start from the beginning. Comics and powered by the Red 5 Network. For more, visit red5.bio.link. Hey nerds, it's me, Danny. I know it's been a minute, but I had some computer issues. This is actually my second time recording this particular breakdown, but I'm back. And if you're new to the channel, welcome. Thank you so much for stopping by. I hope you do me a huge solid. Give me a big fat thumbs up by hitting the like button down below, subscribing if you're new, and ringing the notification bell so you get notified whenever I'm back with even more of this nerdy nonsense. Today we are breaking down DC Comics' own conspiracy theorist and vigilante, The Question, while I do my makeup at the same time. And yes, it is going to be a question-inspired look. If you hear some bird tweets, I am sorry, but apparently I am now Snow White because a robin decided that I am its mother. And so now I have a pet robin by the name of, well, I'm calling him Oliver as in Oliver Twist. And he won't leave my side. He's here now. So if you hear tweets, I apologize. It's just my baby robin that, it's not really a baby. But anyway, and if you would like a list of the products that I'm using for my question-inspired makeup look today, I have linked every single thing I use on my face in the description below. Let's dive in. So like Blue Beetle, Peacemaker, Captain Atom, and even Judo Master, The Question originally began with Charlton Comics in 1967, first appearing in Blue Beetle Volume 4, Number 1, and created by none other than Spider-Man creator Steve Ditko. Vic Sage was a no-nonsense TV reporter who held firmly to his own strong sense of morality and ethics. The Question was an extension of Steve Ditko's own personal belief in objectivism, the philosophical system named and developed by writer and philosopher Ayn Rand. If you've read The Fountainhead, Atlas Shrugged, you know exactly who I'm talking about. If you haven't, you should stop this video and go read them now. Ditko had previously created a character by the name of Mr. A, who was, for all intents and purposes, a progenitor of The Question. However, the Comic Code Authority, you know, those guys we've talked about many times before, they would not give their seal of approval on Mr. A. He was more violent and deliberate than The Question. So to make Mr. A more in line with a Comics Code Authority approved character, he created The Question. He was less radical and more acceptable for the CCA, yet he definitely maintained that heart of objectivism. Objectivists believe that people should see themselves as capable and important, and their own happiness should be their main goal in life. It's definitely something I can get behind. Working hard to achieve things for yourself is the best way to live, and using logic and reason is the only way to make good decisions. To make any decisions, really. Sounds like she's on to something with this, huh? The philosophy being objective rather than subjective indicates that it doesn't vary from person to person or from situation to situation. It remains true no matter who or what you are. Truth is truth, logic is logic, and that is the very heart of Vic Sage, and probably the thing that drives him the craziest. Like, if this very simple fact is objective and true, then why can't all these other people seem to see it? I get it, Vic. It's the selfishness and cruelty of some that drives Vic to do what he does every night. Unlike most other vigilante superheroes out there, the Question doesn't possess any super abilities at all. I mean, not really. He's highly intelligent, he's very observant, well trained in martial arts, absolutely, but he has no super strength, no super speed, he can't fly or shoot laser beams from his eyes, doesn't have any advanced healing or anything. He's just as mortal and vulnerable as you or I. Ditko explained where other heroes' powers are based on some accidental super element, the Question in Mr. A's power is just deliberately knowing what is right and acting accordingly. And where other heroes choose to be self-made neurotics, the Question in Mr. A choose to be psychologically and intellectually healthy, whatever that means. Where most heroes have this life thrust upon them, the Question chooses it because he believes with every fiber of his being that it is the right thing to do. It is the only thing to do. In December of 1967, just barely a month after the Question made his debut, Charlton Comics discontinued their action hero line, leaving readers with only a 3-part story of the Question. It wasn't until 1983 when DC Comics purchased the discarded Charlton Comics characters that the Question got his second chance, appearing in the 1985 Crisis on Infinite Earths story arc. Finally, in February of 1987, DC launched the Question's own comic book, scripted by Denny O'Neil and penciled by Dennis Cowan. In this incarnation, O'Neil added his own Zen-like or superficial nihilistic and even a little psychedelic philosophy on Sage, in the sense that material possessions, fancy titles, affiliations, or any earthly wealth are meaningless. The only things that matter are ethics, morality, and truth. Since then, various writers have continued the tradition of adding their own philosophies to the character. For example, in Rick Veitz's run, his miniseries in 2006, I think, he imagines the Question as more of an urban, self-taught shaman with a kind of walking in two worlds shamanistic warrior mentality. He has an alternative moral code that is reflected in his brutal and sometimes lethal treatment of his adversaries. The gas he uses to adhere his mask, which we'll get more into in a minute, ends up having hallucinogenic psychedelic properties that cause Vic to have these visionary trances. In these trances, Vic communicates with cities. Yes, he communicates with cities while tripping his balls off. And he does this through bits of overheard conversations and coincidental images. He sees signs and sidewalks. He sees himself in this miniseries as a spiritual warrior of sorts, and he's comfortable with killing when he feels it's just or just seems fitting and poetic. Adding to his new shamanistic aspects, Vic could now even use meditation to help heal wounds, sense danger, block pain, communicate with spirits, and even locate enemies. Basically, Rick Veitz's run somewhat gave Vic Sage the Question some superpowers, and I don't know how I feel about it. I feel like it takes away from what makes the Question so great, that he's this mortal guy, this average, somewhat average guy who's an investigative reporter who looks into something and uncovers something else and then just keeps going down that rabbit hole and becomes this warrior for truth conspiracy theorist. I love that about him. Later in the New 52, he was given the ability to teleport and astral project as part of his mental prowess, which, again, unneeded for the question, and takes away from the heart of who he is. Now, unlike Blue Beetle, Peacemaker, who saw changes to their characters, their origins and whatnot, when making the transition from Charlton Comics characters to DC characters, Question seemed to really retain his Charlton roots, with DC basically just making additions or expanding on his Charlton origins, since Charlton basically left it kind of open. They only had like a 3-part story in the Charlton comics. He was known as Vic Sage, a red-haired investigative TV journalist by day, and by night he was the Question, a tall black-haired man in an ensemble rather unique for comic book vigilantes, comprising of an orange shirt, blue suit, trench coat, gloves, and a fedora. And of course, the most important aspect, he had no face. And that facelessness and the hair color change is all thanks to a failed Band-Aid. Aristotle taught Rodor, and a one Dr. Twain developed a new kind of wound care known as pseudoderm. The skin-like bandage was applied with some bonding gas and was intended to give patients, like burn victims, the luxury of maintaining a somewhat normal appearance while healing. Unfortunately, the pseudoderm had a pretty unfortunate and unforeseen, extremely toxic side effect on open wounds. Sometimes the results were even fatal. Once the truth was discovered, both Tot and Twain agreed to drop it. Can't use it on open wounds. It's killing people. However, Tot discovered that Twain was selling the pseudoderm on the black market to third world countries. So nice. He was pretty unbothered by the fatal effects it had on those poor people. So he was basically, a piece of shit. So Tot turned to the only person he could think of who could help in this situation, his old pal Vic. He offered him the information as well as a handy solution to help hide his famous face. Luckily for Vic, Tot had made a mask out of the pseudoderm, and he also found a secondary use for the bonding binary gas. Vic could not only use the gas hidden in a compartment in his belt, gloves, or even cards to bond the pseudoderm mask to his skin, but he could also use it to alter the appearance of his hair and clothes. Not only does Vic obviously uncover the plot, but he also exposes Dr. Twain's dastardly deeds on television while bound in pseudoderm. So dramatic. I love it. When DC contributed to his origin story, we learned that Vic was actually an orphan. DC loves their orphans. He was left on the steps of a Catholic church, and when the nuns found him, they named him Charles Victor Saz. As a youth, he developed quite the reputation as a troublemaker and prided himself on defiantly enduring the physical abuse he suffered at the hands of the nuns at the orphanage. He eventually managed to get into college, where he studied journalism. Same, briefly, very briefly. But his higher learning didn't do much to mellow his violent tendencies, such as when he beat up a guy for dosing him with acid, which gave him a frightening and terrible trip and made him doubt his own senses while under the influence, which later, under the Veitch run in 2005, he learned how to harness that. Aside from the Question's faceless face, the most notable aspect of his character is the fact he's a conspiracy theorist. When the Question first appeared in the Charlton comics, Ditko had imbued the Question with a relentless pursuit of truth and skepticism towards authority. I mean, it sounds pretty healthy to me. Don't know why everyone thinks he's crazy. The foundational distrust of the systems and institutions laid the groundwork for his conspiracy-minded outlook. Sage's role as an investigative reporter in Hub City exposed him to systematic corruption, reinforcing his belief that hidden forces manipulate society. He's not wrong, so He investigates organized crime, crooked politicians, and corporate malfeasance, revealing interconnected webs of power, fueling his paranoia and conviction that conspiracies are pervasive. The constant betrayal and deceit he uncovered as an investigative journalist solidified his view that nothing is ever as it seems. His lack of superpowers forces him to rely on his intellect, detective skills, and intuition, often leading him to question official narratives, hence his name, The Question. His willingness to explore fringe theories and connect disparate clues, sometimes obsessively, stems from this mindset. Over time, this approach blurred the lines between rational skepticism and conspiracy theorizing. When DC revived the character in the 80s, Sage's character was really deepened. O'Neill introduced existential and philosophical elements influenced by Zen Buddhism and martial arts through Sage's mentor, Richard Dragon, whom Sage was introduced to by Lady Shiva. This run really emphasized Sage's inner turmoil and an obsession with uncovering hidden truths, portraying him as a man grappling with the complexity of reality. His encounters with bizarre, shadowy threats, like the villainous Reverend Jeremiah Hatch, is one creepy motherfucker. And his distrust of institutional power pushed him farther towards conspiratorial thinking as he saw patterns of control everywhere. Vic's personal experiences also contributed. He's often depicted as a loner, alienated from society, with a few close relationships. Traumatic events like near-death experiences, betrayals, witnessing atrocities in Hub City, this really intensified his paranoia. For example, again, in O'Neill's run, Sage is beaten, shot, left for dead in open water, only to be saved at the 11th hour by Lady Shiva, and then forced to reinvent himself, which amplifies his sense of a world stacked against truth seekers. His isolation makes him more susceptible to seeing conspiracy theories, as he lacks a grounding support system to challenge his theories. But The Question's conspiracy theorist streak really reflects the era in which he was being written in. For instance, in the Cold War era Charlton comics, his distress mirrored fears of communism and government overreach. In the 80s, O'Neill's run tapped into the post-Watergate cynicism, corporate greed, and urban decay. Later iterations like The New 52 or Justice League Unlimited, it leaned more into the late 90s, early 2000s conspiracy culture, with Sage investigating things like secret societies, government cover-ups, or supernatural cabals. His adaptability to these contexts cements him as DC's quintessential truth seeker, often teetering on the edge of extreme paranoia. After Vic's death in the 52 series, 2006-2007, Renee Montoya inherits the Question mantle. While Montoya is less conspiracy-driven, Sage's influence through his journals and teachings shows that his worldview persists. His obsessive documentation of patterns and secrets reinforces his legacy of conspiracy theorism and tenacity in searching for the truth. Sage's level for care for others and the world around him is a mix of idealism, cynicism, and personal struggle. While his obsessive pursuit of truth and justice makes him seem detached or even self-absorbed, his actions and motivations reveal a profound, if not conflicted, concern for humanity and the state of the world. At his core, Vic Sage is driven to expose corruption and protect the innocent. As an investigative reporter and vigilante, he risks his life to uncover hidden truths, whether it's political corruption, organized crime, corporate malfeasance. It really suggests that he has a very deep care for his world, as he believes that revealing these truths would lead to a better, more just society. For example, in Steve Ditko's original Charlton Comics run in 67, Sage's relentless pursuit of criminals and corrupt officials shows a commitment to improving the world even if his methods are uncompromising. Sage's actions as the Question often focus on defending those who can't protect themselves. In O'Neill's Question run in the 80s, the Question number 1 through 36, he frequently intervenes to save individuals caught in Hub City's web of violence and corruption, such as abused children, exploited workers, and citizens targeted by powerful elites. His willingness to put himself in harm's way, despite not having any superpowers, shows his self-sacrificial streak. For instance, in the Question number 1 in 1987, he nearly dies trying to stop a corrupt preacher's scheme, showing his readiness to suffer for others' sake. While Sage does care for others and cares deeply, his worldview is tinted with cynicism. His constant exposure to betrayal and greed and systematic rot in Hub City makes him distrustful of institutions and even people's motives. This can make him seem cold or aloof as he prioritizes the big picture of conspiracies and hidden truths over personal connections. However, his cynicism comes from the disappointment in how the world could be, but isn't, revealing his underlying idealism. In that run, his philosophical training under Richard Dragon and study of Buddhism show his desire to find meaning in all of this and improve himself, showing he cares enough about the world to seek a higher understanding of it. However, Sage's care for individual people is a bit more inconsistent, kind of like having trouble seeing the trees through the forest. His obsession with his mission often isolates him, and he struggles to maintain these close relationships. And his paranoia can make him pretty abrasive and dismissive, to say the least. However, he does show capacity for empathy. With his bond with Myra Furman, the Hub City's ineffectual mayor's wife, then she becomes the mayor, he shows genuine concern for her safety and her moral struggles, even if their relationship was messy and doomed. And in the New 52, Sage mentors Renee Montoya, training her to become the next Question. His efforts to guide her, even as he's dying of cancer, spoiler alert, it reveals a selfless desire to pass on his mission and continue to protect the world through her. These relationships, though few, show that when Sage connects with someone, he cares deeply, often putting their well-being above his own. And then, of course, there's his relationship with the Huntress as portrayed in the animated series Justice League Unlimited. Highly recommend watching Season 2, Episode 9, Question Authority. You won't regret it. Sage's ultimate act of care comes in, ironically, the New 52, where despite terminal lung cancer, he continues his mission and trains Montoya to carry on his work. His decision to keep fighting, even though in great pain, and to ensure his fight against corruption lives on after him, underscores a profound commitment to the world's future. His death in the snow after failing to stop Intergang feels tragic, but really reinforces that his care for others drives him even until his very last breath. That said, Sage's care does have limits. His conspiracy theorist mindset can make him very focused on abstract threats, sometimes at the expense of immediate human needs. His abrasive personality and tendency to alienate allies, like Tot, his friend and tech support, can sometimes undermine his efforts to help. His moral absolutism, which is rooted in Ditko's objectivism, can make him judgmental, as he really struggles to empathize with those who don't share his very rigid sense of right and wrong. How much he cares is also reflected in the tone of his stories. In Ditko's era, he was a staunch defender of justice, caring for society's moral fabric. O'Neill's run added nuance, showing him as a flawed man wrestling with his own anger and alienation, but still fighting for a broken world. In modern depictions like Justice League Unlimited, the animated series, he's portrayed as a quirky but dedicated protector, willing to challenge even the Justice League to keep the world safe from hidden threats. Vic Sage cares intensely about the world and its people, driven by a burning desire to expose corruption and protect the vulnerable. His actions, risking his life, mentoring others, and sacrificing himself, show a selfless commitment to justice and truth. However, his cynicism, paranoia, and obsession with conspiracies can make his care seem distant or abstract, and his difficulty with personal connections limits his empathy at times. Ultimately, the Question's care is profound, but it is expressed through the lens of relentless, often solitary vigilance, making him a tragic yet heroic figure. Aside from his care for the world that he lives in as a driving force, his journey stems from his skeptical nature, exposure to systematic corruption, philosophical evolution, personal trauma, and the cultural anxieties of his story's eras. His relentless quest for truth, while admirable and noble, often leads him to see conspiracies where others simply see coincidence, thus making him one of the deepest, most complex, and even one of the most relatable characters I have ever come across. I am so glad that Backyard TARDIS asked me to break down this character, because I didn't know a whole lot about him, and now I do, and I'm a massive fan. I absolutely love this character. This has been such an eye-opening and entertaining research project, and I'm so sorry that it has taken this long to get this video out. There's been so much going on, and then all my footage disappeared. So very sorry it took this long, but here it is. And I hope you got something out of it. If you would like some comic recommendations, I will have them in the description below. Highly recommend watching Justice League Unlimited. I mean, just for funsies even. I mean, it's a great animated series. If you enjoy the content I'm putting out, do me a huge favor. Please hit the like button. It lets our algorithm overlords know that you enjoy what I'm putting out there. I hope you subscribe if you're new, and ring the notification bell so you get notified whenever I'm back with even more nerdy nonsense. If you would like to help support the channel, I have so many options for you to do so. Just check that description below as well. Until then, nerds, I've been Danny. You've been awesome, and I will see you in the next video. Keep your eyes peeled, okay? Because I heard
Disney and Kathleen Kennedy are gonna get you!
Wow.